Good evening, everybody.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right, that's much better. Okay, so I think this is going to be a relatively. I'm gonna make sure that this is on that just to make sure, and I get the windows up there. All right, so I think we're gonna have a relatively quicker show tonight because I think there's not too much to talk about. I think there are some really important things to kind of discuss. We did have an annual town meeting the other night on Monday night, and I wanted a shout out. I think logistically it worked really well. I think the attendance was interesting. It certainly was more of a normal kind of annual town meeting, given that there really weren't tremendously controversial bylaw points, I don't think, made on this particular warrant. But the clicker voting apparatus, I thought, worked great. This was something that was talked about really kind of right after COVID or during COVID, when I know Mr. Miller and I and Deb Fagerstrom, we had talked about it, and at least in theory, we kind of put down some notes, and I'm really glad it came to fruition. And so shout out to everybody that made that happen. I know Mr. Adams helped again in that to kind of make that, to follow that up to fruition. So
that worked well.
I think it certainly beats the counting hands, or somebody didn't have their hand raised. They need to say something and have a recount in a section or whatever. That didn't really work all that well, and it certainly made the meeting longer. And so this, I thought, worked really well. There's some controversy about whether or not what should be on the screen. The controversy was, do you have a checkerboard that has everybody's numbers, so when you vote you can see your number and you know it either turned red or green, so you kind of knew how you voted. Is that good or bad? There is a little feedback device that tells you that your vote was counted. I think at some point you have to believe the system, you know what I mean? Because it seems like it's been validated at the Senate level, this system.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that there's that much room for.
Yeah, it's been used in a lot of towns now, and I know Mr. Miller reached out to a bunch of different towns to hear about that, and it's something that was on the Mass Moderator's site quite a bit, his email group or whatever that is.
Right, the listserv,
Yeah, and it sounds like it's been very well vetted. If you looked at the numbers, were usually about 100 people that voted.
Right.
I know there was probably at least one that I missed because I was talking to someone or doing something else or lost concentration.
Right. And that's understandable. That happens even with the raising of hands and cards and whatnot. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Where you miss a vote, or I've even seen it where people are voting and then they're voting on the wrong number because there was a little bit of controversy. But this made it a little bit simpler. The number, the question was actually on the screen as well, which made it even more simple. That if you could read the screen, the screens there are two, I think, positioned
one
in
on
the
each
front.
side.
And if you were in the back, I don't think you could read it very easily. Maybe the wording you might, but certainly not seeing the checkerboard with the numbers. So I think a lot of people don't want their numbers up there, and the privacy that goes along with, if you have the box, basically it had a little number, and that number corresponded to what your number was. So, could somebody look at your clicker box and say, oh, okay, you're 132, I'm going to see how you vote every time. It's just not, it's not a realistic fear in my, I don't know. But I would personally, when that question was asked, I said not to see the checkerboard. I could see on my clicker if I voted, it was accepted, and I know how I voted. And that was it.
I think, and I don't know if this is all towns or just this town and just these past couple of years, but there's a lot of people out there that are scared of, signing things, voting on things, being involved, talking to certain people.
Right.
And
True.
and anything that we can do to help bring people out, I think is going to be helpful. And the more anonymity there is involved,
Right.
I think is better. We have to trust the process, which some people may not want to do, but
Right.
I do think that it's been vetted, and I do think that of all the possibilities, this is the best one.
Oh yeah, I think when you get into especially a potentially controversial bylaw question, it will make people feel more free to vote the way they want to vote, rather than being in a row surrounded by individuals, and when they put their hand up, you don't. Whether or not you feel comfortable with it, there's going to be some sort of angst that goes along with that.
Right.
So I think it worked out great. I thought it was faster. It was much more efficient, and certainly I think it's going to be part of the future ATMs, annual town meetings.
And I do have to take a small bow and say that that my first amendment, the only amendment that I made at town meeting, I think if that was a hand vote, I would have lost by a landslide, and it would never have passed at all.
As an amendment. No, I 100% agree. That particular vote was not going to pass if it was hands.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know if we need to go through every article. We would really encourage people to look at the warrant. Is the budget on the website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, at the same link.
So the same link as the warrant. And so the first articles basically have to do with line item budgetary items. So the first 3, 6, 7, 8, almost 10 of them, I think. And so go ahead, say it.
So everybody knows, as of right now, the town website is down. I don't know if there's anybody watching who can do anything about that, but right now we're getting it temporarily unavailable.
And this just happened at like 6:10 because I was on it, or maybe 6 o'clock, something like that. I was on it and I was kind of putting together, and I've got some of the links that I had that go to the town because it was just easier for the election and whatnot. It was just easier to put the posting right on it. Yeah. And then when I went to update it and refresh it, it's down. So
conspiracy theorists might have something to say.
Yes, exactly, during our show time.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I don't think that's the case.
No, I don't think so either.
It probably has more to do with the storm that just went through or something.
Probably so. We had a it was an interesting beginning to the town meeting. I thought having the senator there was nice to see him. I saw him talking to you for a little bit, but it was nice. He presented a citation for 3 years of being on the select board.
What could arguably be among the 3 worst years for Brimfield in the past,
certainly bumpy. Yeah, I would say. But listen, flowers, citations, and a certificate from the last town meeting, last regular select board meeting. I thought that was all great, and it's, I don't know, good use of taxpayers' money, I guess.
Sure.
It is a thankless job. There's no doubt that there's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of time and a lot of frustration and that goes into the job. Some of which you make up for yourself, and some of it you make for others. But I applaud people who virtually voluntarily, when you look at the stipend, especially now, it's virtually a voluntary type of position, and I think you do it for, you hopefully do it for altruistic reasons, and sometimes you don't. You do it for agenda reasons, and
sometimes you end up doing a YouTube channel for altruistic reasons.
Right, because I think, I want to get some points across. I know there's been a lot of anxiety. A lot of people don't like this show because they think that we're jealous of what's gone on or whatever, that they're making such strides. I think if you look at the budget, I think if you look at the way the last 24 months have gone, there is no way in hell that I would be proud of the way it's kind of gone in the 2 years.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't be. I think there's a lot of work to come in and fix a lot of things that are broken or teetering, to be quite honest. I think that there are a lot of these bylaws. I think the wording was wrong. I still believe that when I asked, let me go back. There are a couple of bylaws that were passed that basically allowed for the department heads to purchase certain materials that they need to function, right? The wording of these bylaws basically said that the purchase would be made by the procurement officer with the approval of the department head. I mentioned that this was a red flag to me in the spring when I first read it, because it's never been worded that way. Procurement officers, every municipality needs to have a procurement officer. They need to be trained, they need to be certified, and they help keep the purchase of large items legal. Like there's a bidding process that everything goes by the book for the state. I get that. That's 100%. Now, if there is no procurement officer, then there's a problem. These departments aren't going to be able to buy anything. Now, when I asked town council, he said, well, every municipality has to have a procurement officer. Well, we know that there was, how many months? At
least a year.
At least a year, maybe 15 months, when we didn't have a certified procurement officer. Now, the answer to that question would be, well, as long as somebody was in the process of being trained as a procurement officer, they would be able to act in that position. So, I don't know what that means.
That was the answer.
Right, and so I don't know if it's the only answer or the correct answer or what.
The follow-up question should have been, if a town does not have one, what is the state going to do?
Right. Or they don't have one in training.
Right.
What are they going to do?
Right. The answer would be nothing.
Right.
You know, which is what happened for 15 months.
Right.
You know, we actually, so for, I believe Carol may have been the first chief procurement officer we had, and that only happened within the past, you know, within a year or two of her, you know, resigning.
Right.
And then when we hired Teresa, she was certified as a chief procurement officer, but she did not accept that position.
Right.
That was not part of her job description. It was not part of her arrangement with the powers that be.
Right.
And she wanted to avoid that based on past procurement that was going on, or procurement that was going on at the time.
She was uncomfortable with some things at the beginning. Now, I don't know when, at some point they must have made her the official one.
Yes, she relented and she is now the official. But
so, I mean, if she were to leave, there wouldn't be one, and it would have to be somebody in training in order to be a procurement. Oh, the
website's back up.
Website's back up, so that's good. Awesome. So maybe
we'll take credit for that one, even though I would tend to doubt it.
I think it just rebooted.
Yes.
So there must have been a lightning or whatever. So anyhow, so I thought that the wording of that is a little bit ominous.
As good former selectman, I what I've learned from this board is that we should pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah.
Say we were in charge.
Let me print you a certificate. You did a great IT job for that. But so I don't know. I was a little bit. I thought the wording was unusual to make it so explicit. I think it goes without saying that a procurement officer should be involved with the purchases of certain things.
Yes.
But to make them the sole approval with the support, actually they were I forget how it was worded. Now I gotta go look. But it was they would the one that could sign it with the approval of the department head, and so it wasn't like and or anything like that. So anyhow, I thought it was worded poorly. And I think it opens up a potential issue later on down the line. There were a couple of things, there are a couple of items that we talked about a little bit. The assistant to the select board, they increased the hours of that to become a fully benefited position. don't think people understand what that means. Once you get over, they went up to 24 hours.
Right.
And I'm not saying that, given the nuances of this board, that Teresa and the executive assistant or assistant to the select board and the person that would be helping them will be busy. I'm not saying that they wouldn't be busy. And so I don't think anybody really wanted to pull the rug out from under it, because de facto I think they are going to be busy. I do think that it was a position that became a benefited position, which means that there is a lot more than the hourly pay that is going to cost the town. All of a sudden now, health insurance, there's
Potential for health insurance.
the potential for health
Vacation,
insurance,
sick.
Social Security,
Retirement.
It's what it's
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that
Not Social Security.
not Social Security. That's part of the
Town
payroll.
doesn't pay
Payroll,
Social Security.
right? But it there is a pension, and so there are some concerns about the long-term cost of that.
Right.
That won't be a big deal now, but could potentially become a little bit of an issue later.
Right.
The other thing is the reasoning for that position. One of the things that the chair spoke on was basically that there was so much extra work to be done because of grant writing, grant submission, follow-up grant, authorization, and you have to do follow-up reports with grants when you get them to say, well, this is what we did, and this is how it looks now. Usually there's some sort of follow-up afterwards. Green Community Compact, Community Compact, there are a few of them. That's it's a lot of work, but when it's spread out between 5 individuals on the board, it shouldn't be that much for the administrative assistant.
Right, and that's where my point came across when I stood up and said, we can give the raise to the assistant to do this work, or we could ask the select board to continue doing what we've always done historically,
right?
Where we would help out. We helped out with grants.
Right.
We went after grants. We did the reporting on grants. We sat in the office when there was sick time or vacation time.
Right.
And by we, there's by no means is it him and me.
No.
We did parts of it. Other people did other parts, and everybody, towed their weight.
Right. The grant writing was something that I did at night. I mean, the state, for these grants, they try to make it as easy as they can.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're convoluted. There's multiple pages. There's an Excel sheet that has like 20 pages in it, and you got to keep track of it. You can ask people that work in town for the help that you need for green communities. I needed electric meter rate. I needed how much oil we were spending, what was the electric bill in the school. I needed all that stuff. I don't have that, so I got it. But then I put it together in the grant at night. I would just put this stuff together, and that's just what you do.
Yeah, and that also goes towards the employee satisfaction of knowing that Paul is asking for information that he never said, here's a spreadsheet that I got to fill it out. Right. It was, can you get me some information so I can fill it out?
Right, and it worked. I mean, the system worked. I mean, we got. I think the amount of work, if you divide it over 5 people, is doable. It really is. I mean, it's doable, and that's part of it. It's part of the job, and I think you learn about the grants by doing that. You learn how they run, how they what they're looking for. At the end of it, you get an idea. You talk to people in the state and just say, all right, they send it back when it's not right. Hey, you got to fill this out again because you forgot this or you didn't, and that's fine. They'll do that, and it'll all work.
And it also helped with employee satisfaction. Right. I mean, we're in the game. They're in the game. They know we care.
Right.
And it's just something that unfortunately is now lost, and it's a difference of opinion on how to lead and how to manage.
Who should be doing these grants? I think in a small town, I think you need to step up and help. Yeah. That's my opinion. The other thing that was pointed out is the time commitment that for Freedom of Information requests, which I haven't I mean, I don't know how many there are outstanding right now. There aren't that many. There were a lot at this controversial part that was brought on by the sitting board, quite honestly. He did mention open meeting law violations. There haven't been that many, but the reality is when he said, that they're all absolutely meritless and
as we've gone through many times before.
He's blatantly lying because they have absolutely found violations of the open meeting law.
Absolutely.
So,
you can go on to the mass open meeting. Go on to the Attorney General.
They have determinations.
Yeah.
It's right there.
And you can see all the letters that I received, that Paul's received.
Right. So as the chair's saying that there's been nothing, it's been meritless and frivolous, he's implying that there have been no findings of violation, and an absolutely bull-faced 100% lie. We can prove that.
There haven't been violations. There haven't been fines.
Right. There's no teeth in the law.
Yeah.
We found that out. Like there's really no repercussions. You can just say, "Oh, sorry, we won't do that again," and you're supposed to not do that again. So I think if you kept doing the same thing over and over, they might fine the town on that. But to say that there were none, was totally disingenuous.
Right. So, but town meeting is done.
Yep.
The election is next week.
Right.
Things are looking good. The term of one of the select people is over.
Yep.
Flowers and certificates and all,
Yep.
and now we can hopefully move forward and move the town forward.
Right.
And I think we're sitting in a very good spot now where, I guess we'll start with the election discussion, and
sure.
So don't know much about Mr. Cordy, but I can't believe that if he were to win, it would be as bad as it is now.
Right. I agree.
I think either candidate, the trajectory is north.
Right. I agree. I mean, I don't know him. I do know his significant other, and I don't believe that she would surround herself with someone who is a complete a-hole. I just don't think that she would. So, but I don't know him, and I did reach out. We were going to get a series of questions out. I kind of fell back on that because I thought there was an inkling that there might be an open forum for discussion tomorrow night. And the word on the street is it's just another meet and greet, and it's not going to have the. Individuals can do it, but I thought it would be more of a question answer, from the crowd, just to kind of see.
But what has always happened in the past?
Well, it's been done. It's been done by the clerk and the moderator in the town hall, and it's worked in the past. I don't know.
Yeah.
In the past.
It's
not
unfortunate.
in the last 2 years. It hasn't. We didn't have one, right?
Yeah, we did.
A forum a year ago.
Yeah. When we ran.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't remember that.
So.
Yeah, I'll quickly forget. So, so they didn't have one. I don't know why, but they could have. Instead, they had a sponsored meet and greet, kind of sponsored by the select board. You could say it wasn't, but it was.
Yeah. By one member.
By one member, and certainly authorized by the rest. And with nobody saying, maybe we should have somebody else sponsor this. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So, my biggest take on this is this. When I first came on board, I have business experience, I've got management experience and all that. I did not have town select board experience. And the good thing about it, good and bad, there were people that were there that I could get a feel for how it worked, good and bad. Because there are people, you can say, that's not cool. And some of my first experiences were like, okay, I see how this is going to go. But then you learn, all right, this is what this is about. You talk with the highway when they're in, talking about the chief when they're in, talking about their department. And you learn as you go. And you learn by getting that information explained to you and not jump to conclusions early on. The first year, I mean, I was like, okay, I'm trying to learn these things, I'm giving my opinion, but the reality was I was just, it was soaking in more than it was, making decisions about, because you don't know all the information until you know some of the information. I can tell with 100% surety that even in the last year and a half of my tenure as a select board member, I didn't get all the information that I needed to get to actually be on that board, sitting in the board in those meetings. I know what we got was filtered.
Last year.
The last year.
Yeah.
The last, yeah.
Yeah, because actually it was, I believe,
A year and a half.
Carol was there for a little bit of the last year, so probably the last 9
fall.
months.
Was she there last fall?
No, of
The
our
year before.
when we
Yeah,
were-
the year before.
So it's
Right,
probably
so it's
only
2
9
years, right,
months that
right.
that we got filtered information.
Right. Yeah. And so, but it was like 2 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
I was thinking,
Yeah.
right? It was like a year. So, so the reality was, we even had to ask for Freedom of Information Act. Basically, we needed emails that were pertinent, and it was ridiculous. I have no reason to believe that
Anything has
changed. I just have no
way
of knowing, but I have no reason to believe it's changed.
We've heard that from Mr. Soto.
Right.
Not in as many words, but if you listen to some of the things that he's complained about,
right,
it's that he's not getting
not having
information
ahead of time.
Yeah.
And maybe he's just not making some of the outside meetings.
Yeah.
that may be happening. But
so again, staying positive.
All right,
because
staying
it's a positive new
so
year.
It's extremely important that anybody new comes in and they get the guidance that they need to get to perform well in this job.
Or they have the guidance and the knowledge already.
Right. Exactly right. And my fear is that somebody who comes in totally as a newcomer is going to get swallowed up and not get the information again. I mean, I just truly believe that it could not, it might not work well.
My take is a little different. I mean, I think of the town as a business. And when you're talking about the select board, you're talking about the board of directors of this town.
Right.
It's a $12 million business. And I would never want to have a board of director, I don't want anybody on my board of directors that doesn't know my company.
Right.
Or maybe not my company. If you're new, that's fine. Right. But you have to know my business.
Right.
And for someone to come in, it's one thing if this person has been to a bunch of town meetings, a bunch of select board meetings, a bunch of finance committee meetings, a bunch of planning, name, school committee.
Right.
And I would much rather see. I think that you can't just jump into being on the board of directors. You kind of should work your way up.
Right.
If it's a well-tuned, well-oiled machine, you can get away with, coming in cold. But ideally, I think it's also kind of a reward, where somebody just jumping the line to the most important, most front and center influential board. It's a lot for somebody to do, and it takes a very responsible guy to come in and not get power hungry. I mean, just by the very power, if you come in as Joe Schmo, home business owner,
right,
and all of a sudden you're in charge of a $12 million company with 20 employees, it could be something that
right.
You start really thinking about. And
it could get ahead of you. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons there's so many on the board, is that the idea would be that you get a nice eclectic view on things, and I'm not sure that we've got an eclectic view on things. I think we've got a very, very tunnel view on a lot of things from this board. Just the feel of it. I mean, they certainly have very, very specific views and direction that they're kind of pushing towards.
And that could also be a misnomer, because we don't hear discussion on anything. There could be discussion and dissent happening somewhere. It's not happening at a public meeting, or at an open meeting. So either everybody's in agreement, everybody has discussed it and discussed what they're going to do before the meeting starts, or just by chance,
right.
I guess everyone's in agreement.
Right. It is very interesting sometimes when you listen to the topics and there's a vote on it, and the underlying topic considerations have not been voiced.
Right.
So clearly, how can you vote on something if you haven't really made your awareness, made aware of it, and then made your opinion on it obvious to other people and discussed it? And I've been surprised at several of the things that just kind of came up and just were voted on with no discussion, very little discussion.
Yeah.
Certainly not enough discussion to make it look like they were actually just now looking at it.
And this could be something that, kind of speaks to what you were saying of, you've got, the board as it's currently composed, the 5 members, 3 of them have been on the board for a year or less.
Right.
One of them has been on for 3 years, and one of them has been on for 2 years now. And then last time that the town went into a funk, he was on for 9 years at that point.
Right.
Very, tangentially or coincidentally. So, there is really no one with experience, and Ms. Collins, I don't believe learned a whole lot of information, learned a whole lot from you or me.
No.
I could be mistaken.
No, it's definitely contrary.
And maybe she would say that she learned what not to do.
Right.
No, but
right.
Whatever the case, there was there was a post on Facebook about how, somebody new can walk in and they're faced with 200 years of experience. Well, that's not the case.
No.
I mean, there's basically 4 people, and with the exception of Mr. Soto, who served in a city capacity, right. the other 3 had never served on a town board, to my knowledge, ever. I don't think Mr. Berkovici did. I don't think Mr. Adams did, and I don't think Ms. Collins has.
Before,
right,
no, agreed.
Before the board. So there's no institutional knowledge there.
No.
So, it's tough.
Right.
It's a very tough place. So, maybe those 3 new people who have been there less than a year, and who didn't very rarely showed up to one of our meetings when we were on the board.
Right.
Maybe they didn't understand that they could have public discussion. And public discussion meaning discussion amongst that board. I mean, it should have been public discussion with everybody.
Right.
But at least
even to talk about an agenda item amongst themselves, so that you heard what they were saying. It happened once in a while, but it wasn't on a lot of the things that you would have expected it to be on. Even just a little bit. Just to explain things a little bit.
Right.
And when the questions were asked from the audience, obviously there were no questions to be had. I think it's a tough ask to come in new and expect to be guided
and it's
appropriately.
Yeah, and it's good. I think one of the things that we've been missing now for close to 3 years, I guess. I think maybe even at least 3. No, was so now I'm going to turn to Mr. Cordy, maybe well-intentioned, maybe good, but given his lack of experience, lack of knowledge of municipal stuff, I just can't see, this being the right time for him.
I think I kind of agree with the right timing. I mean, I would love to see new faces come in because, especially if they can kind of come in a little at a time, so that they get educated and they work their way up, and then the next person comes in, they get educated and they work their way up. My biggest fear is that it will be a lesson in frustration, and I'm not sure the guidance will be there. But if he makes it, all the blessings to him.
I would suggest to Mr. Cordy that, you know, if he doesn't get elected, you know,
run the next time.
Try to get appointed for some other board.
Yeah.
And dip your toe in, you know, even just attend these meetings.
Right.
You know, get to know what the different hot topic buttons are in town.
Right. Because then there will have been, you know, people that have been on for a couple of years now that may have gained a little bit of experience and awareness. If Mr. Vandal gets on, he'll be on. He's he's been on before, so he should have at least a little bit of an awareness of the way things ought to be run.
And Mr. Paul has, you know, 2 or 3 years. I spoke with him and he wasn't quite sure if he had a 2-year term or a 3-year term. Did he come on with you?
No, I think he came on.
Well, either way.
Yeah, either way, it doesn't really matter.
He has experience as a selectman.
Must have been a 3-year term.
That's what I thought.
They're all 3, I think.
But if he came in during the transition from 3 select board to 5, there may have been an adjustment period.
Okay, that may be true.
Yeah.
That may be true.
Whatever it is, so he's done that. His father before him was a selectman in a different town and knows what to expect. I mean, cold dinners, phone calls, you know, whatever it is.
Yep.
He's also been on the zoning board of appeals, and I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
You know, when we were on, Carolyn Haley was on the board of assessors. She had previously been a clerk at the building department.
Right.
You know, Michelle Shea, having been, happy birthday, Michelle.
Yep, happy birthday.
Was on the school committee. She was a clerk for the planning department or planning board.
Yep.
You know, so there were a bunch of tangential experiences, if not direct, that helps out. You know, if there was a chapter land, you know, sale, Carolyn could explain it to us.
Right.
You know, if there was some other discussion on well, like the solar fields, a issue that you know some residents didn't like us for, because we understood, and this was, you know, we spoke with Michelle, we spoke with the planning board themselves, we spoke with legal, and we went a certain way.
Yeah, we understood the role of the select board under those circumstances. And it was very little.
Yeah. So, you know, having prior knowledge, I was on the finance committee.
Right.
You know, and I brought that financial whiz mindset to
That's
me.
good.
To the board.
Well, that helps a lot, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, and my financial wizardry was basically ask Mike Maloney.
There you go.
Ask the finance.
There you go.
Because that's all you need to do.
That's all you got to do.
Trust in them. So, you know, but I do think that the more varied backgrounds, and so Paul coming in as a zoning board of appeals, as a fireman, you know, he knows the town, he knows departments, he knows the public safety issues. Ryan helped out as a selectman, you know, and
specifically with those issues. Sure.
Yeah. So I think Paul brings a lot to the table and understands a lot about this town, and at this point in time, I strongly believe that this is what we need. Yeah, and I'm very thankful that he's willing to do it. Yeah, he was on the fire department for he's still active for 15 years. He's got his own company. You know, he knows how to deal with people. So, we don't want to make this a vote for Paul might. But
No, I mean, I think it's just trying to lay the cards on the table and kind of what the expectations. I think if Mr. Cordy gets the vote, I think that we expect a lot of them. There's going to be a lot of hit the ground and learn, and sometimes it might be despite the people at your elbows during certain meetings, and to think for yourself and not, and I would not assume that everything that you hear is gospel.
Right.
I think you got to do your own research and investigation and interpret things the way you think is right. And
reach out to people. Reach out to people you trust.
Absolutely.
Reach out to people that you may not even trust.
Right.
You know, and just get a bunch of different opinions. There are, you know, I spoke with, you know, I tried to get as many townies that, you know, 60-year residents, 60-plus year residents, you know, get their take on matters. Get the take of the flea market, the other business owners in town,
Right.
my neighbors, you know, people that you just bump into.
Yeah, there are a lot of really good resources around, and I think if you make them available to you, you make yourself available to them, they'll kind of help you in the guidance.
Yeah.
It just would take a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I just fear that it might not be what people want. You know, when you get in there, it might be a little bit tough.
Yeah.
So, again, good luck to both candidates in that respect. I think that the town has some judgments to make, some decisions to be made. I'm glad as well that we're at this crossroad that we can get somebody new on the board.
Yep.
I'm very interested to see how the board's going to reorganize.
Yeah, the reorganization should be interesting.
That should be interesting.
Yeah. And then I guess to anybody watching, if you can reach out to these candidates, you know, I would. I do the research yourself. Think about what matters to you.
Yeah. I don't know that meet and greet. Do you know anything about it tomorrow night? What time?
No.
Yeah. I don't. I can look to see if it's on there.
Oh, I guess I can do that.
I can see if it's on might be on the calendar. Yeah. 15.
Again, it's night 6:30 to 8.
6:30 to 8. All right, so 6:30 to 8 tomorrow night in the hall. I take it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's in the hall. So, unfortunately, I don't think it's quite the way it ought to be, but it is what it is, and we apologize for not maybe getting. We were going to try to get people on interview with Zoom calls with certain questions just to kind of get things cooking, but we honestly thought it was going to end up being a candidates night, like to have that happen, and we didn't get that.
Right.
And so next time we can do that, be a little bit more forceful with that. But all right, I think that's pretty much all we had tonight.
I was just checking my different forms of media. And
yeah. Good to see if there are any questions. No, it's probably a quiet night.
Yeah.
I thought again, and one question that I would really like people to think about is there are lots of things that go through the whole year that have to wait to a town meeting, and I know there are other towns that have started doing 2 town meetings a year. One just to kind of dot I's and cross T's of things that you would really wish had been done before, but you don't want to necessarily wait a whole year to get it done. And there are a lot of things that happens, and quite honestly, a lot of it is you're thinking about it, and you kind of forget about it by the time the warrant's due, and then you think about it afterwards. You say, I wanted to get that bylaw put in, I wanted to get something written up, but like the caucus. I mean, do we need a caucus?
Yeah.
I mean, do we really need a caucus? Just pull papers if you want to run. Why do you need to have a caucus?
Right.
It's kind of old school, and I know I talked to the town clerk, and she was of very similar sentiment.
Yeah.
The town caucus makes scheduling a little bit of uneasy because there are so many days that has to be done before the election, and it's I think it's past its need,
an old,
to be honest.
Tradition, but at the same time, it like we saw this year.
Right.
There are going to be groups that are going to try to stack the room.
Right. So you eliminate that. Yeah, you want to run, you pull papers. You get 20 people, or whatever, 15, whatever it takes.
Yeah, and then maybe you bring it and you say you need 50 now instead of the 20 or 15 or whatever.
Right.
Make that bar a little higher.
Sure.
So that it's a little bit tougher to become
right
a candidate.
So there are like simple things like that you forget about, and by the time the next warrant comes in, the next spring comes in, it's not the first thing on your mind, and then it doesn't happen. And so if you had a second meeting, you could maybe get a few of those things that need to be immediately purchased or whatever. It might just kind of make things smoother. I don't know. I've always been of the mindset that 2 meetings would just be more efficient to kind of get things done rather than waiting a whole year. Waiting a whole year just always seemed like a long time to me.
I don't know if I fully agree, but I do wish that we could do more throughout the year. Because people do forget, and anytime that I've thought about putting a warrant together,
right,
it has just been, it's due in April, I can do that later.
Right.
And I don't know if it's something that the bylaw committee should start having regular meetings.
Right.
And
in
just
anticipation of having it all polished before the end of the holidays. So you're ready.
Yeah. It actually, if thinking about it, because the holidays are kind of the trigger for the finance committee to start.
Mm-hmm.
If they could have like the bylaw committee start, now and work hard through the holidays,
right.
And just start allowing people to write things in, and they can have discussions about it, and give advice. I'd love to have a bylaw committee that doesn't just go I guess
right. Yeah.
But assist a resident in writing a bylaw.
Right. Maybe get the sentiment that's supposed to be like what they're trying to accomplish, and then say, all right, maybe the wording is wrong, or maybe this is too limiting, or maybe this doesn't say enough, or if you looked already, we already have a bylaw that's very similar. Let's use, you know what I mean? They could give some guidance rather than just say, whoops, like I don't even know how often they ought to meet as soon as they start coming in.
I don't think they meet. It's an on-demand board, which like this year, I don't know if they really met because there weren't any citizen bylaws. I don't know if they have to meet for every. No,
I don't think so.
There were no general bylaws. I think they just do the general bylaws.
Right.
They're the zoning bylaws, but that's the planning board.
But then they have an open, right. So, so there's a lot of consideration. I think there's a lot of change that needs to happen in this town at this point. And so hopefully this is good.
I'm going to end it with my one request for this year.
Oh boy.
If this board can accomplish one good thing, which is probably one more thing than they accomplished this past year, but please bring the bell tolling back. This week we had I don't know if it really counts on both, but we had a woman, and I forget her name, who was a teacher for many years.
Oh, I just got that.
And she was a teacher at the Brimfield Elementary. Sounds like I didn't know her, but it sounds like she was, a very dedicated, very well loved teacher. She deserves the community to respect her and pay respects to her. Right. Another gentleman just passed away, who was on the Friends of the Senior Center, and I'm not sure if that's an official committee that should happen. What was his name? Boy. And he again, I've in my volunteering with the Senior Center, I've seen him many times. He created with his own money, his own time. He would design his own gift baskets for every month, and they'd have there he is. Yeah. But it doesn't have his name. If you click on Senior Center, it will probably show you. One of her posts should. Yeah, here. Come on.
All right.
Where are we? Well, whoever it is, he was a spectacular guy who created his own gift baskets that were then raffled off, and all the money, all the proceeds from those gift baskets that he paid for and assembled, he would give away, or he'd donate to the Friends. Bobby. Yes, Bobby O'Keefe, was it? I wanna say it's Bobby O'Keefe for some reason.
Okay.
Again, he played a good role for this community, helped out with our senior center, and served in that unofficial capacity for a while. Both of those people do deserve that the community to respect them.
Yeah. Agree.
You know, it was sad on Memorial Day to see how many veterans passed away. And you know, Phil Carpenter, the Memorial Day parade was dedicated to him. You know, he passed away. He was a member of the Marines and Navy. He was on our Memorial Day committee for 30 years, plus or minus. He deserved that.
Right.
And please bring that back so the community can pay their respects.
All right. On that note, I think so. Hopefully that will get done. We have the election next Tuesday.
Oh, Bobby O'Keefe.
Oh, good job.
He was an amazing man who was loved by all.
There you go. Good job. Got that in. And we have the election next Tuesday, and we'll be back on Wednesday to talk about it.
Yes.
All right. So that should be exciting.
And whoever you decide to vote for, please vote.
Right. Yeah. Please just get out there and vote. Again, good luck to the candidates. I think whoever makes it is going to have the work cut out for them. And but probably no matter who needs the support of the community, and hopefully they'll represent the community as best they can. So, all right. Listen. Good luck to everybody. Vote, vote, vote. We'll talk to you after the.
That's
voting.
only one vote, though.
Yeah, oh yeah. You can't vote multiple times. That was one of the things about the clicker. They were wondering if you clicked enough times, could you actually keep on voting? Yeah.
So June 20th.
Yeah. So June 20th at the town hall.
From noon to 8 p.m.
Noon to 8 p.m. And I think that's it. And I'm gonna have to say that this will be the last time.
Yeah.
That
we get to hear
that
this.
we get to do this.
Children.
It can happen anyways. All right, so we're gonna bow out now. We're gonna start the music, and we'll see everybody next week.
Have a good week.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.